All right. Let me see if I can get everybody back. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Okay, it says it's streaming from my channel, but it's not showing up. Maybe because I deleted this stream. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, so hopefully everybody will be back. All right. I'm just going to get going. Let me share this to Twitter actually, real quick, because there were a few people in the chat, and I know y'all had a lot to say. And I just want to make sure that we can have a good conversation today. Really apologize for the technical difficulties, you guys. Let's see. Share. I'm going to go to Twitter, and we're going to hit new link. So if you do come across this stream, or you have come across this stream, please share this on social media so we can get some of the people back. Technology is sensitive. Okay, so new link live now is what I'm putting on Twitter. If you are here in the chat, go ahead and drop your takes. Where was I? I think I was talking about the fact that the Dallas Cowboys, along with every other NFL team, cut down to their 53-man roster today, and social media is abuzz. I personally didn't have anybody who I was like really attached to, who I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be so emotional if they get rid of this person. But I do know that there are some Cowboys fans who felt a way about some of the changes. I would say not that this was something that I was hurt about, but it was more so something that I was surprised by. And it was the trade for Awesome Richards. Now, I wasn't surprised that they traded him. I thought they could get more for him. So Awesome Richards ended up being traded for a 2028 six-round pick. And to me, I was like, dang, not only a six-round pick, but all the way in 2028. So that was probably like the first piece of news that I actually posted about, that I was actually surprised about. And some people came into the comments like, well, yeah, the other tackles were better. And I'm like, no, that was not the question for me. I was like, only that? But then we heard Brian Schottenheimer talk in his press conference about the fact that they were going to let him go anyway, that they weren't going to keep him. So when the Saints seemed interested, they figured they might as well get something. And that's definitely what that trade was giving. It was giving, okay, we might as well get something for this particular player instead of nothing. And so that's what they went with. So I'm curious from y'all if there's anything else that surprised y'all. Just a brief overview, because I know one of the topics was how many wide receivers are they going to keep? Hey, what's up, D Block? Good to see you in the chat. But one of the conversations was how many wide receivers are they going to keep? It looks like they went with 5. Currently on the roster is George Pickens, Jalen Tolbert, CeeDee Lamb, Ryan Flanoy, and Kevontae Turpin. Now, Ryan Flanoy is one of the people that they've talked about being especially impactful on special teams. So naturally, with the way the team has always emphasized special teams, the Dallas Cowboys have always made made a big deal about that. You kind of expect to see someone like Ryan Flanoy here on the list. Kevontae Turpin. Now, I heard some people say that Kevontae Turpin is the reason why Deuce Vaughn is no longer on the roster. So I'm going to speak to that as well. And before I get to that piece of it, though, I'll let y'all know the running backs that they did keep, because I know not everybody has spent their entire day on Twitter like some of us have. But it looks like Javonte Williams, Jadon Blue, Miles Sanders, and Hunter Lipke. Once again, a situation where there weren't many actual surprises. Both the wide receiver room and the running back room were very full. And so it really just came down to like, okay, who are they going to cut? But you knew somebody who had some skills was ultimately going to get cut. And that looks to be the case. But yeah, so Deuce Vaughn was waived. And if you're like me, you might have been wondering what's the difference between being released and being waived. It's basically the same thing. When a player is waived, it just means that they've been in the league less than 4 years. So they're released to the waiver wires where another team can pick them up. Whereas when they're released, it means that they are a veteran who qualifies for being a free agent once a team lets them go. So that's the only difference. So Deuce Vaughn was waived, and that Kevontae Turpin serves the same purpose plus some. I can see that, but I also think with Deuce, I think what the Cowboys are looking for is someone who can handle the physicality a little bit better. Deuce did a lot for his size, and I think he ran the ball pretty well in that last preseason game. But one thing that Schottenheimer has been talking about ever since he took on the role of head coach has been versatility. So he wants receivers who can line up in the backfield, he wants runners who can catch passes, and he wants skill players who can block. And Deuce Vaughn, I think he gave it all he had, and I definitely think that when it comes to his size, he definitely, he gave it his all. I won't say that he didn't try to block. I won't say that he was even bad at it for his size. But I think what it came down to, what a lot of these roster moves are showing us, is that the Cowboys, they were looking at what can you do? What are you bringing to the table? What's up, Ty Church? Good to see you in the chat. They were looking for people who could actually perform. They weren't looking for potential. They weren't looking for guys that they necessarily liked, although I think they like a lot of these guys as people. But they are looking for people who are going to actually contribute. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. If you try hard, but you weren't necessarily getting it done, that wasn't going to keep you on this roster. And I feel like another move that really illustrated that was let's see, where was it? Because it was on the defensive side, and the name isn't coming to me. It was someone who was waived. It was Kimon Hall. He was released, and that was another name that surprised some people. And I think Shotty actually talked about that in this particular press conference, and I do want to play some clips from it because I thought Shotty was actually very open and very honest in the press conference about the decisions that he made and why he made them. So let me see if I can find that particular part of the press conference, and then we can talk about what those decisions were and what he had to say about them. So, yes, Shotty was asked, I see here, about Kimon Hall and Childress. And so let me see if I can pull that up for you guys. Oh, and by the way, if you are in the chat, do me a couple of favors right now. Go ahead and hit the like button. I know people are bouncing back and forth between different shows, and I don't blame you. There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube right now. But go ahead and hit that like button. And if you have a take, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Bobby, thank you for letting me know I sound amazing now. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. What's funny, quick side note before we get into this press conference with Shotty. What's funny is I was telling somebody the other day, because this is my 5th year going into this podcast, right? And I've been in various studios, had various setups. I've even lived in various cities. And I feel like audio issues have haunted me the entire time I've been doing this podcast. And so it's just funny that, like, even with me doing this for so long, it's still just audio issues that keep happening. No matter how skilled I get, no matter where I am, it's just like it's always something. All right, let me go ahead and pull this up. I think this is the one. Hold on one second.
Out there in a lot of different positions, and that process has already started for Will and his team, and it'll be a long night tonight and into the morning.
Hall and Childress, I know they were competing. What was the thought process there between keeping Childress?
Yeah, younger player. I mean, again, Kemon's a special young man, good football player, very physical. Zion's instincts from the beginning have jumped off the film at us. Just his physicality, the way he can play as a blitzer, the way he can fill the B gap, and tough decision. But usually when you're dealing with two players that are very, very close, you tend to go with the younger guy.
All right, so that last part about going with the younger guy, I think is one of the things that surprised some people, because in the past, the Cowboys have kind of honored people who had given them something. They tended to keep around people who meant something to the organization and had a history of contributing. And so I think for some people, this is one of the first signs that was like, oh, so y'all are really going to go with who's going to get the job done, regardless of what they've done in the past, what they've meant to the team in the past, or what they've contributed in the past. It's all about the here and now. And I think that's kind of a big deal because while 53-man roster cuts happen today, anybody who's been following the NFL knows that this isn't where it ends. You know, there are people hitting the waiver wire. There are people who are going to be brought to the practice squad. There are people who are going to be let go from the practice squad. Right now is when a lot of teams really get into their chess moves, you know. So we're definitely going to hear about some more changes moving forward. But if it's anything like the decisions that they made for this particular roster, I think we're going to see some good things for the Cowboys team this year in terms of who they're bringing onto the team. Now, there's a lot that we have yet to see as far as scheme. That's a whole different story. But I think there's a lot that we're going to see in terms of the team and their commitment to actually bringing in players who are going to contribute. And not necessarily people that they just like as people. Greg, what's up? Good to see you in the chat. Hit the like button for me if you don't mind. So, now, on that note, somebody else that they did talk about was Deuce Vaughn. He did talk about Deuce, and he talked about Perrion. I'm trying to decide which soundbite I want to go with first because, honestly, I think both speak to his philosophy and what Shadi is trying to do with this team. So when he talked about letting Deuce go, he did talk about what he contributed. And so even though there were some people who were saying, oh, well, Deuce brings the same thing to the table as Kevontae Turpin, I thought that it was interesting that one of the things that Shadi talked about was actually just what he contributed overall and the importance of being versatile. Because if we go back to when Deuce Vaughn was drafted, and I think a lot of people remember this, it was definitely a feel-good story. And there were some people who called it nepotism, saying, hey, Deuce would not be in the building if it weren't for his dad's connection with the team. And I think if you thought that would be the same thing to keep Deuce Vaughn on this team, the change that was made today just said, hey, you're not right about that. D-Block, you're exactly right. One of their guys. That's the phrase that I've been looking for this whole time. Cowboys have a tendency to protect, quote unquote, their guys, the guys that they draft, the guys who are the feel-good stories, the guys who, you know, the fans like, the guys who have names that the fans know. And this was a year where the Cowboys are like, nope, the season is way too important. Too many people have put a lot on the line for this. So let me go ahead and pull up that next soundbite where Shadi talks a little bit about his reasoning for letting go of Deuce Vaughn. I have the same video open in two different tabs, and I keep losing track of which one is correct. Let's see.
Good to get, you know, something for some.
I knew this was going to happen. All right, I'll pull that back up for y'all after the break. What happens is when the Cowboys play something live and then they convert it to a regular video, it's no longer available live. But I don't want to waste a bunch of time trying to find the new link to the video and finding the new soundbite. So I'll do that during the break. So y'all just stick with me here. But I want to look at some more of y'all's comments and y'all's takes. So let's keep going. So we're down to 5 wide receivers. So that answers the question a lot of people had about 5 or 6. But not a surprise, they're keeping 2 quarterbacks on the roster. There was the assumption that they were going to keep 3. And this is also something else Shadi talked about in the press conference. If you haven't seen the press conference and you're wondering about the reasoning for a lot of these decisions, definitely go watch it. Because pretty much any question that you might have about these decisions, Shadi answered it. And there's definitely going to be more to come. But yes, Will Grier is not on the 53-man roster. It's just Dak Prescott and Joe Milton as the 2 quarterbacks there. And when Shadi talked about it, he seemed to kind of lean to the expectation or hope that Dak would remain healthy and that they might need Joe, but that they wouldn't need a 3rd emergency quarterback. And one of the conversations that happened a lot during preseason, I think, was a lot of people were in a place if Dak gets hurt, cannot play anyway. And so I think that's kind of the philosophy that went into this. It's definitely not something that we would expect any of the coaches to say out loud, but that seemed to kind of be the vibe when they asked Shadi that question. It was kind of like, if we absolutely need a backup, we have Joe Milton, and if we need a backup for him, well, we're not in a good place. So there's a strong possibility that they do end up bringing Will Greer or someone back to the practice squad. There have actually been some solid QBs who've been released from other teams. There have been some solid QBs that some teams might even be willing to trade for. So you never know. But it definitely seemed to be the vibe that it's like when it comes to their mission to win this year, it's Dak or nobody. So they would rather free up that third spot than run the risk of not having somebody else in a more useful skill position because they want to keep an emergency third quarterback that ultimately will not get them to where they want to go. I'm not mad at it. So 2 quarterbacks. They've got a running back room of 3. I know I said Hunter Lipke before. Fullback, so technically, yeah, throw him in there. Let's see who else. I know the corner position was another position a lot of people were looking at. So let's see. We've got Zion Childress, Jerron Bland, Kyer Elam, Andrew Booth. Okay, let's talk about Andrew Booth for a second. Hold on, I want to see Bobby's comment real quick. Bobby says, I don't understand why not have 3 QBs on the roster, especially with the NFL rule that it doesn't cost you a 53-man roster spot. I'm going to wait until after the break so I can play you Shadi's reasoning on that just to make sure I don't get anything wrong. Does it not cost you a 53-man roster spot? I don't know. I know when it comes to the regular season, it doesn't cost them a game day spot. It doesn't cost them a roster spot for the game day roster. But I do believe that they freed up that spot for a reason. But we'll talk about that after the break. I'll pull the sound bites back up, and I'll also look into that rule so I can make sure and properly respond to that question, Bobby. But when it comes to the cornerback room, so yeah, like I said, Kyer Elam, Andrew Booth, Zion Childress, Jerron Bland. I think the Zion Childress decision might have surprised some people because of the expectation of keeping Keeman Hall. But when it comes to Andrew Booth, he's one of the ones that a lot of people really don't know how to feel about him. Or I shouldn't say they don't know how to feel about him. I think a lot of people know exactly how they feel about him. But it's case in point. D Block says, why is Booth still here? I'm trying to think of the most respectful way to answer this, D Booth or D Block. I'm so sorry. Booth is still here because they needed a body. They needed another corner. They've got a lot of injured people in the room. Chris, what's up? Thanks for hopping in the chat. Go ahead and hit that like button for me. So they needed more people in the room. That's all I can tell you, D Block. So once Andrew Booth had that interception in that second preseason game, he pretty much confirmed his spot on the roster. Now, one thing that I will say is that in moments, I think I described Andrew Booth to someone like a lottery ticket. In moments, he can make some big plays, but the conditions have to be right. He's not someone who can go out there and just perform regardless of how he's set up. And that's one of the things that I think applies to everyone who's on this list, this 4-person list that's currently on the 53-man roster, but in different degrees. One thing that people have complained about all preseason when it comes to the corners, when it comes to the secondary, is like them having so much cushion. And so, yes, it's very noticeable with Booth, but it's a problem with all the corners. So part of me wonders if they think that once they kind of make some adjustments when it comes to scheme there, if he'll perform better. Because if you notice when he got that one interception, and then they didn't play him very much after that, but he got that one interception, but it was a situation where he happened to be in very close proximity to the guy that he was covering. Now, there are 2 issues with that. One of them I just mentioned, which is the fact that often our corners are given so much cushion that doesn't happen. The other issue is that when Booth is typically covering somebody, and I mean, I've said this on air before, and this is something that I noticed, especially when I was watching the practices live in Frisco, there were times where he was literally going the wrong direction. So in Andrew Booth, we're talking about someone who needs to work on his skills, not only when he's in zone to make sure that he closes that gap quickly and in the right way. But even when he's in man, it's very easy for him to lose his guy. So um, one of the other things that Shotty said today in the presser was that yes, this is the 53-man roster, but that the game day roster is something different. And so I think Andrew Booth might be somebody who's going to have to work his way onto the game day roster. Bear says Booth will get released once Revel is ready. Um, Very possible. Z-Block says he is trash though. I don't like calling players trash. I will say his performances have been trash. I don't want to say he's trash, like just as a player. Um, Here's my philosophy when it comes to that. A player can get better, but it depends on how long will it take them to get better and what's the work that they're willing to put in. And by that I mean, can the Cowboys afford to wait for him to get better? No, no. And if that's what you mean by trash, on that point, I agree with you, man. Um, he is not someone that if I see him on the starting lineup for a game, that's going to inspire confidence necessarily. But now he has more time to put some more work in with the ones. We'll see. We'll see what they decide on game day. We'll see what he ends up doing. But I think overall, like all the corners need to be put in a better position to win. Um, I'll tell y'all a little bit more about what I saw at practice that I think will help that after we come back from the break because we got about 10 seconds before we hop into this commercial break. We're going to pay some bills. I'm going to pull up Shotty's press conference and we'll get into that in the second half. Or maybe not. We might still be having technical difficulties and not have a commercial break. There goes, there goes. Second half. Stick with me if you're in the chat. We'll be right back.
Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
And we are back. Are we back? Yes, we are back. I'm checking all the buttons now. What's up, Hoodie? Good to see you. Thanks in advance for hitting that like button. All right. So I said that I was going to look up these sound bites, and I was able to actually get the timestamp for one of them. And so we'll start with this clip about Awesome Richards. Um, and so Shadi did talk a little bit about the reasoning behind letting go of Awesome Richards. And I know some people were curious about that. Some people don't care. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. We'll listen to it, and then we'll talk about that. And then I'll finish my thought that I was leaning towards with the cornerback room after this particular clip.
Nick Harris, Fort Worth Star Telegram. Can you talk about the trade with the Saints today and Awesome Richards and how that came about?
Yeah, again, Awesome was a guy who was right there on the bubble. Awesome's played games for us, and we drafted him. He's done some good things. More than likely, it looked like he was going to be a guy we were going to release, and the Saints felt very strongly that this was a player that they had targeted, that they wanted, and rather than take a chance on losing him, they wanted to make the trade, and we felt good to get something for someone that was probably going to get released.
Okay, can y'all hear me? We're having even more technical difficulties. So now the screen that I was using to pull up these videos is, I don't know. Tiff, if you can hear me, something's going on with the TV in the room. So this might be the only clip that I can play for you guys today. And I can't even move the mouse to get myself back on the main part of the screen. So I can see from my YouTube that y'all can still see me. Is Mercury still in retrograde? What's going on? Anyway, D-Block says, just curious, are you a Cowboys fan? Yes, I am. I currently live in Fort Worth, so I cover the Dallas Cowboys, I cover the Dallas Wings, and I am a fan. Now, one caveat that I will say, it's back. The TV is back. One caveat that I will say is that I'm typically a fan of players, so part of the reason I'm a Cowboys fan is because currently a lot of my favorite players are on the Cowboys, but there are other teams that you might see me cover on this channel. Not necessarily on the station so much because this is NTX Radio, North Texas Radio. So I'm going to talk about the Dallas teams. But if you watch other stuff on my YouTube, you might see me talk about Shedeur Sanders. You might see me talk about Caleb Williams and the Bears and some other stuff. So, yes, I am a Cowboys fan. All right. So right there, and I wasn't really listening because I was trying to figure out the technical difficulties going on with the TV. But essentially, he talked about the fact that they were thinking about waiving Awesome Richards, so they figured out that they might as well get something for him anyway. And if you join me for my live tomorrow, we'll go over some more of these sound bites so we can really dig into some of the stuff that Shadi was saying. But for now, I'll get it more into what I was telling y'all about the cornerback room. So when I was at practice, one of the things that I did see, and this was only a couple of times, but one of the things that I did see was Eberflus had them set up in what a lot of people call collision coverage. Now, from asking around, it seems like there are a lot of different names for this type of coverage, but you can basically think of it as you have your four linemen, so 2-1 techs, 2-3 techs, and then kind of lined up in front of where you would normally put corners if they were in press man. Instead of putting corners on the line of scrimmage, they put linebackers there. And so what this did was it kind of disrupted the flow of the wide receivers, but instead of the linebackers following them like a corner would if they were in press man, it just kind of disrupted them, slowed them down for a second, and then the linebackers went to doing what they were going to do, and the corners from there, it was their responsibility to come down, whether they were in man, in zone, so on and so forth. So it was kind of a little bit disguisey, definitely something that we haven't seen too often, but I was like, okay, for a situation where everybody keeps looking at these corners and it's like, oh, they've got too much cushion, but they're not all necessarily the best at playing in man, this could be kind of a compromise in putting your linebackers kind of where they need to be, but also letting them kind of help the cornerbacks from the very beginning when the ball is snapped. So I was kind of into that. Now, I only saw it once, maybe twice, so I don't know how serious they are about it or how well it's going to be executed. I can't really judge that from seeing something twice, but I did think it was interesting. I thought it was very good use of the really physical linebackers that we have this year, and it's something that could potentially help a cornerback that people are concerned about, like Andrew Booth. So definitely something to watch for there this season. D Block said, all good, we can hear you. Good. That's the most important part at this point. So from there, let me go back to the 53-man roster and just see if there was anything else. So yeah, when it came to the corners, people were like, how many are they going to keep? Ended up going with 4. Who else we got on the defense? We've got, okay, as far as DTs, Osa Odigizua, Perion Winfrey, Solomon Thomas, Mozzie Smith, and Jay Toya. Now, there were some people who thought that they should get rid of Mozzie Smith. That was not something that I ever expected them to do. And real quick, D Block, what team are you a fan of? I'm curious if there's a particular team that you've been watching and if they made any interesting moves. I know a little bit about what some of the other teams have done, but I haven't dug into it in the past couple hours as much as I have the Cowboys. But yeah, there were some people who thought that they should trade Mozzie, get rid of Mozzie. That's not something that I ever expected to happen. Just because, one, it's a complicated situation because of his draft stock and the guaranteed money. 2, even with him kind of struggling to pick up that attack front defense, I never really got the feeling from anything that any of the coaches said or any decisions that were made that they actually had given up on him, that they weren't going to let him continue working on that. One of the most unfortunate things about Mozzie's situation is that he was drafted for a different coach and a different scheme. So his situation is unfortunate in the sense that he's basically being asked to do something that he's never done before, but he's asking to hurry up and pick it up on the level that you would expect from a first-round draft pick. But once again, it's something that he's never done before. So I'm not really mad at the coaching staff for giving him another chance. We saw, if you watch any of the practices, you saw kind of what the defense looked like with Osa and Solomon Thomas out there next to each other. And as a matter of fact, somebody asked me about that. I want to say, like after those public practices at Frisco, like some of the content creators were getting together and talking. And, I said I wasn't worried about the defense or the D line at least. And they were like, how? Like, what did you see that, made you confident in the defense? And I'm like, I saw what it looked like with Osa and Thomas out there. So no, I'm not really worried about it. And I think Mozzie will have time to catch up. He'll have time to learn. And one thing that was interesting at those practices, Cole's Cowboys, good to see you. What's up? But one thing that was interesting at those practices that I might talk a little bit more about that I might follow, because I realized while I might be a bigger Osa Odigizua fan than most people I know, Osa apparently has a lot of fans and a lot of people who respect him for his leadership. So one of the things that I saw while I was out there was Osa Odigizua having extensive conversations with Matt Eberflus. And by extensive, I mean they would talk for a couple of minutes. Osa stopped to tie his shoe. They talked for like a couple more minutes. Like I was recording Osa waiting for him to do something because I kept missing it. And I ended up recording him like just standing there talking to Eberflus for like 4 minutes. He also had on a wristband that kind of looked like a play caller's wristband, like what quarterbacks wear a lot, but obviously for defense. So that to me says that Osa is being trusted not only as an athletic defensive tackle that really fits the Eberflus scheme very well, but it seems like he is playing some sort of leadership role that is going to actually transfer to game day. So I'm really excited about that and to see what that leads to and to see what it means. I know a lot of people talk about, okay, who's going to be the green dot? And I think the assumption is when it comes to the linebackers, who's going to be the green dot, everybody is assuming that it's going to be Maris Luafau. Yes, Maris is in his second year, but he had some really good experiences with the green dot last season. He's proven himself to be really smart, not only in the position, but just in life. And so I feel like that's the expectation. And Eberflus, he needs smart linebackers for the way that this defense seems to be running, for what he seems to be planning to do. Eberflus needs a type of linebackers who can look at a situation and not only determine how an offense is set up, but also prepare for how the offense might be disguised, what might be some unexpected things to come out of a particular formation. And I feel like they've definitely got the right people in place to do just that. So for linebackers, right now in the 53-man, they've got Maris Luafau, Damone Clark, Shamar James, Kenneth Murray, and Jack Sanborn. So really good choices made there. But getting back to Mozzie and the defensive line, yes, he's going to have time to learn. I'm not surprised that he's still on the 53-man roster. Um, and I think one of the other decisions that surprised some people that also should not have been a surprise was Perion Winfrey. Um, but I think one of the reasons why that surprised people was partially because of some of the stuff that was just going around on social media today, as though something happened recently with Perion Winfrey. I won't get into what has happened with him in the past, mainly because any situation that he dealt with, the league has already taken action. Charges have been either dropped or they were never pressed in the first place. But there were some rumors out there that they were going to let him go. And when I heard that, I was surprised, but then it turned out to not be true. But yes, Perion Winfrey on the 53-man roster. Jay Toya, he's another one people seem to have mixed feelings about. Here's how I feel about Jay Toya. I don't look at him as an elite player, but I definitely look at him as having the potential to be elite. So for whatever reason, there were some people who have such strong feelings about Jay Toya. They thought that he would be waived and he would either be on the practice squad or we wouldn't hear from him again. Jay Toya has some really good traits that fit the Eberflus scheme very well. There are some things that he has to work on, specifically with his hand technique, hand placement. He is really good moving laterally, like when he gets going, but sometimes his first step laterally is not that great. But when it comes to his first step forward, he's got a quick first step. He's explosive off the line. He is primed to be disruptive. More so when it comes to run defense, or no, more so when it comes to pass defense and run defense. And maybe that's why a lot of people don't really like him. Everybody wants the Cowboys to have a defense that is set up to block the run immediately right now today. I get that. But Jay Toya is putting in a lot of work, and you can see it. You can see it in how his pad level has progressed. You can see it in how his hand technique has progressed. You can even see it in how he's I almost feel like some of the imperfect snaps that we saw from him in the preseason were because he was like actively working on things. So I look forward to seeing what he does as the season goes on. Let's see what else y'all are talking about. Bobby said 0 snaps without practicing. Who are you talking about, Bobby? I'm not sure who you're referring to. I don't know what I was saying when you wrote that. NFC East and NBA Street says we cut Israel McQuamu and not Booth. I feel you on that. I think that is a tough one. I'm not gonna lie, because the one explanation that I heard from about Israel McQuamu, and I can't remember who said it, but shout out to your guy Nick's. His Twitter Spaces are elite. But someone said that possibly part of the reasoning for that was that Izzy doesn't feel like a specialist. It doesn't feel like he's, definitely a safety or definitely a corner, and they know what he's going to do and they know where to put him, which I can understand people looking at him that way. But with the emphasis on position flex and player versatility, I don't even see why that would be a bad thing. So I would need to hear more about that. But just on paper, just looking at the list and saying like, okay, Booth is still here, but Izzy's not. I feel you on that. And I want to hear more. I'm the I want to hear more person. I'm not the knee-jerk reaction, hot take, I hate what these coaches are doing person. I'm the, okay, let's dig into this. Let's see if we can figure out the reasoning. Let's listen to these interviews in the coming days and see if one of these coaches says something that helps us understand this. I'm that person. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. Now, if they start saying some shit that don't make sense, I will definitely come back on this channel and I will talk about it. But for right now, we haven't heard from Eberflus. There are moves that are still yet to be made. Like, getting down to 53 minutes, just the beginning. Now we're going to see a lot of NFL teams making moves based on who's on the waiver wire, who's up to be traded, who's in the practice squad, so on and so forth. So there are moves yet to be made. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to wait and see. I'm going to see how y'all fix this. I mean, who knows? They might take the good tape that Booth had and try to, trade him for something more than what most Cowboys players think he's worth. We don't know. We don't know what's next. So just give it a few days. D Block said, I believe we still need a solid one tech DT. I'm not mad at you for that. I think the defensive tackles we have are solid and versatile. And when it comes to an attack front defense where their job is to disrupt the O-line, to, basically speed up the quarterback's clock, I think they're good for that. Now, once the season gets going and we get to see some things, some people may feel differently. What players look like in a practice is going to be a lot different than what they look like once the regular season gets going and they're playing against real opponents who really are ready to take their heads off, and everybody's, trying to get to the postseason, trying to get to the Super Bowl. NFC East says it's a lot of good one techs out there, not that teams made cuts. There are some good ones out there. When it comes to defensive tackles in general, it just feels like almost like the league is in a defensive tackle recession, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but that I guess that's another reason why I'm not really mad at the Cowboys DT room, just because of what I'm seeing like league wide when it comes to DTs. Let's see if y'all got anything else in here that I missed. Not right now, so let's go back to this roster. And while I'm scrolling this, I do want to shout out a couple of people. This is non-Cowboys related. But one, I want to give a shout out to Josh Williams, who is a running back who made the 53-man roster for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, he's a guy who I saw at the Shrine Bowl. And he was nice enough to let me interview him. And I really appreciate when players do that because, while I am in this studio, I am on this radio station, most of the work that I do is freelance. So I don't have people setting up interviews for me. Anything that I'm able to do in terms of like interviews and events, I have to get those credentials myself. I have to set up those interviews myself. So when a player looks at me and doesn't know who I am, and I'm like, yes, I write for USA Today, but that's no reason for you to sit down on camera with me. But they're willing to sit down and have those conversations with me where they break down their careers. I really appreciate it. And Josh is one of those guys, when I saw him at the practice, he looked special. And I met his parents. They were really nice. And I had a sit-down interview with him. Something else where the audio was bad. But he's a running back from LSU, and he's a special dude. He's been working hard to prove himself his entire college career. And I feel like if he stays on that trajectory into the pros, he's a name that we're going to be hearing a lot. So yes, he was from LSU, but he was a UDFA, considered short for the position, but he's proven that he's tough, he's strong, he's got an insane vertical, and I think it was really smart for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to keep him. And other than that, who else was I going to shout out? I don't remember. But yeah, shout out to all the tennis players at the U.S. Open. That's just a real quick one. Coco Gauff is going to be playing right after this for all my tennis fans in the chat. Let's see. The Real Darrell, good to see you in the chat. If you don't mind, hit that like button for me. Says the Cowboys need to commit to the run game with teams going to shell or 3-deep coverage. Fair. And I do think that they are committing to the run game. I don't think it's going to look like what we've seen in the past, but I do think that we are going to see the run game a good bit. And Shadi did kind of cover this recently. Someone asked him about his rule of 53 or 55. And apparently it's an arbitrary number. But for those who didn't see that interview, essentially, and Shadi wasn't really clear on if he still uses this rule, but it sounds like if he doesn't use this rule specifically, he still uses something like it. But it's where that number that's 53 or 55, maybe up to 60, it's customized for each quarterback. And it's basically the number of completions plus the number of running attempts. You want it to equal a certain number. And I know that might sound weird to some people. That's definitely a different approach than what I've heard from any coach. But what it does suggest is that if for some reason Dak is having not the best game when it comes to completions, Shadi's not going to try to get him to throw his way out of it. He's going to start focusing on the run attack in order to get closer to that number and try to keep them on track to hit that number. But if for some reason Dak is lighting it up and those completions are happening and the connection with the wide receivers is happening, then they don't need to lean as much on the running game. And so if you've been following the Cowboys for a while, you know that Dak, when he has a run game that's at least 25 carries and at least 100 yards for any particular game, the games that he's lost where those conditions are met are literally in the single digits, even considering his long-ass career with the Cowboys. So we know that Dak needs a quality run game in order to balance out the offense, in order for him to be successful when he's leading the offense. So I feel like knowing that and putting into context what Brian Schottenheimer said about that number they end up going with, it tells us that they're going to be really smart about the run game. It's not going to be like what Cowboys fans have seen in the past, where it's just like, yo, the passing game is just not happening. And for some reason, we're not like really running it the way that we should. Also, some of the things that Schottenheimer has said in the past suggest that they're not going to be necessarily looking for one lead back to carry everything. So the run game might even look different game to game depending on who they're leaning on. But I kind of like that, because to me it says that they're look at the team that they're playing against, consider what that offense or what that defense typically does, and they're going to make smart decisions about the run game, about the pass game, and who they're going to lean on based on the opponent, which sounds like the simplest shit ever, but it's something that we haven't always seen from the Dallas Cowboys. So if Shotty actually does stick to those principles, I think we're going to like what we see from the offense, at least in terms of what they're attempting and what they're aiming to do. Now, actual execution, we got to wait and see. But it sounds like the decision-making is going to be on point. It's going to make sense, and it'll make our offense look good. Let's see. NFC East also says, I think we should let Miles Sanders go and put Maffa on the 53-man roster. Maffa is going to be on IR, isn't he? Hold on, let's see. I just want to check the status on that and make sure I'm not misreporting something. That's probably the toughest thing about, because, like, I don't do this full time. Like, yes, I write and yes, I do video, but I also have, like, a full-time job on top of all that. It's a crazy lifestyle. But what it also means is that time periods like this, where there's like 60,000 headlines coming in per day, especially about the Dallas Cowboys, you miss some things. Sometimes things get updated and you're like, oh, I didn't catch that. So yeah, Phil Maffa is going to start on IR. So once that status changes, who knows? But that's where we are right now. Now, one thing I will say before we get out of here, one of the segments that I like to do on this show is a segment called As It Is in Sports, So It Is in Life. And I think days like today definitely apply, because one of the things that Brian Schottenheimer talked about, especially when he was talking about Deuce Vaughn and Deuce Vaughn possibly benefiting from a change of scenery. And that's true not only for him, but even for other players. But sometimes when I think the common saying that goes along with this principle is when one door closes, another door opens. Sometimes when we don't get what we want, it's not so much that we're a failure or we don't deserve success. It just means that success is waiting for us somewhere else. And something weird is happening with the video. But yeah, it just means that success is waiting for us somewhere else. So if someone says, hey, you're not a good fit for this team, or as it might apply to some of us who are in the chat, you're not a good fit for this company, you're not a good fit, hell, for this relationship, for this friend group, it can mean a lot of things. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve what it is that you are working for. It just means that the thing that you're working for might come in a different form, might come in a different location. So by all means, if you are someone who has faced rejection, something that you feel as failure, or decision by someone that you just don't understand, don't give up. Don't look down on yourself. Don't talk down on yourself. Keep focusing on what you bring to the table. Keep focusing on what you have to offer, because the person who's waiting to give you everything that you dreamed of, they might be watching you. Literally, they might be actively watching you. They might have literally been waiting for you to leave that situation that really wasn't good enough for you, that wasn't a good fit for you, so that they could offer you what it was that you actually want, what you actually deserve, and what you're actually a better fit for. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like I said, as it is in sports, so it is in life. There are so many parallels between the sports world and the real world. And days like today, where you've got a bunch of young men at one time not knowing what their next career move is going to be, I feel like this is definitely one of those days that applies. Y'all have any more takes here in the chat? No. Well, before we get out of here, I'm going to say, please subscribe if you're not subscribed, and turn your notifications on so that you get alerted next time I post something. I go live from this channel, I post shorts from this channel, and I also post videos from this channel. And hit the like button, leave a comment, and of course, share this video with anyone you think might like this type of content. And something else that I'm going to talk about a little bit more tomorrow is I have been gifted with the opportunity to attend the U.S. Open only for one day, but I'm still going because that's pretty dope. And I don't even know if this one's sending me. I'll find out. And if I can tell y'all, I'll tell y'all. But I'll talk more about that tomorrow night, and also how y'all can support me on the trip. Because while they're sending me, they're not necessarily supporting the content. They're just sending me. So if you want to know how you can support me and making really good content from New York, watch me tomorrow night. NFC East says, definitely enjoyed your show. I'm a new follower and a heavy Cowboys fan. Oh, that's dope. And I'm judging from your channel title that maybe you do content too. If you do follow me on Twitter, send me a link. I would love to check you out. But thank you to NFC East and any new subscriber who joined today. But you can catch me here every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on Internet Radio.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County. Joco Community Radio.
Have you ever met a person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice